Hiya. Welcome to my short Christmas video entitled The Most Wonderful Time of the Year, or Is It? I'm seeing a lot of posts at the moment, a lot of questions in groups and places like that surrounding PDA and Christmas. Now, when you have PDA, pathological demand avoidance, Christmas can become one of the most hardest times of the year for us. And it's because there's so many demands and expectations around this time of year, which we can find really, really hard to fulfill. Everyone, generally is, merry time, Christmas time, let's do lots of parties and socializing and going out and looking at Christmas lights and going to Christmas themed events. And even if it's something that we would enjoy or like to do, just the demand and the expectation and the anxiety that can be contained within some of these situations is absolutely impossible for us to get over. And we can become quite depressed. We can become very perceived oppositional in our behavior to these things that people are like, oh, just try it because you'll like it, this is something you enjoy doing, why can't we just give it a try and have a go? But it's because that expectation has become far too big for us to overcome. That expectation of this is a jolly time, this is a happy time, this is a time where people give gifts and receive gifts, this is a time where we share Christmas cards, it's a time of festivity. And just that expectation of, you should be jolly, you should be happy, Christmas is a cheerful time. Just that expectation alone can be really difficult to overcome. Now, our Christmas looks, quite different to other people's in some respects. I don't have many of my decorations up. The outside of my house, it has various decorations, but we've got barely anything inside. And that's not just because of having multiple PDA people in our house. But for me personally, I know as soon as I put those decorations up, Christmas has started. Now, I find Christmas to be quite overwhelming. It's quite a stressful time. Aside from my own difficulties as a PDAer, the children have various difficulties, and those I also have to juggle as they have very different sort of sensory profiles as well. And again, it's that expectation of demand, because I know, it's the demand upon myself. I put those decorations up, Christmas has come. I have to be jolly. I have to be happy. As a mum, I try to encourage the children to enjoy themselves and do what they want, but equally there's all these traditions and things that we are expected to fulfill, of visitors and decorations and all of that, and it becomes almost a impossible block to get over, because I put that pressure upon myself. And that's what when PDA folks talk about, sometimes demand avoidance comes from within ourselves as much as it does from external sources. You can have a low demand lifestyle, you can do as much low arousal as possible, but there's still those feelings that come within us of expectation that we feel that we are expected to meet, which someone could tell me 1,000 times, but Kira, that doesn't matter, you don't have to do that. But I have that expectation within myself of, Christmas is jolly, Christmas is fun, I must be jolly and fun, and therefore I can't be jolly and fun. So when we talk about things like, respecting self-autonomy, meeting the needs of an individual on their basis and meeting people where they are, this is what we mean when we say take into account that demand avoidance, especially with PDA, can be as much an internal source as it can be from an external source. Because I truly believe, we are the hardest upon ourselves. Most of us, kids do well if they can is a really, really good phrase, and one that I try to live by, but also for myself, because I do well if I can. And again, it's almost another expectation, because I know I have, the ability to be a happy, fun, jolly person, but that expectation is really hard. So we are very much sort of in the moment people. If we engage with something that, I might find fun and I might enjoy, it's very much spur of the moment, and knowing that I have the ability to back out if I need to. So as an example, last week I went to go see some Christmas lights with my mum and my sister, and my daughter came along as well. And I love Christmas lights. I am very much a sensory seeker. I'm ADHD as well. So, I get a lot of dopamine from looking at, sparkly, pretty things. It's like, ooh, crow brain activated. But equally, it was quite difficult in the expectation of this is the first time we've gone out and done family things for a while because we have lived far away from family. So there's almost the expectation of doing things this Christmas because we are home effectively again amongst family. But I did really enjoy myself, and it was a little bit difficult getting out, and I know both my mum and my sister would have recognized that. And right up until the last minute, there was always the option to not go. It was really nice seeing them, and I carried myself through on wanting to see the Christmas lights because they're one of my favorite things, and I wanted to do it, and because my wants aligned with my PDA, because as hard as it was to get out, as much as it was difficult in the sense of I didn't know if there'd be lots of people there. There was, what was it going to be loud? Was it going to be noisy? Were there going to be lots of crowds because it's a decorated road that we were going to see? I sat with my anxieties, but still the overriding need, which was that I wanted to go and see them, I was able to overcome the other difficulties. Now, sometimes there are situations where that overcoming need becomes too much. And that's where we can't engage with the things that we enjoy, because by then the demand that we want to do it has become too big that we can't get over, that I want, because the demand gone, right, no, can't do it now. You want it too much, sorry, it's not going to happen, no. And that often crops up with, again, if we have created an air of anticipation about something, we've been looking forward to it and looking forward to it and looking forward to it, and we've built it up so big in our heads, and we have that massive expectation of what we think it's going to be. There is always the fear of that expectation then not matching up to what the experience actually is, and that can also cause a blocker, because if something isn't right, if it's not how we have pictured, and that failed expectation happens, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because now we are like, oh, well, it's not how I thought it was going to be, so therefore it's wrong. This isn't right. It's not what I wanted. So, no, can't do that. It's the same reason why we struggle so much to adapt to changes and rapid changes in situations, because again, we have this expectation that we have within ourselves of what something is going to be. And when that expectation is failed, it's almost like, oh, PDA was right all along then, because it told me I wasn't going to enjoy it. It told me not to go, especially if we push ourselves then through the situation, which can be quite damaging sometimes, because then we have that failed experience. We're like, oh, well, I'm not going to do that again, because even though it might pan out right the next time, my experience has been it's not going to work. And that can be really difficult to overcome when we have had a bad experience one time, even if it's something we wanted, to then, accept the fact that, well, it might go okay next time. Our lived experience in that event is, well, it went wrong, so it's always going to be wrong. And it's a very hard mindset to get around and overcome. And when we talk about respecting people's self-autonomy, and we talk about, self-led approaches, we need to take into factor, all of these past experiences, the way that trauma has perhaps defined us in the past as well, because trauma, leaves indelible marks, and our lived experiences and the experiences we have will colour how we approach things in the future. Even if, the parent or the person or the carer of the PDA person has done absolutely everything they can to make sure that this, that problem's not going to happen again, or that, I've made this as PDA friendly as possible. We are very much people who are governed by our internal systems. And we are quite often anxious people, but PDA doesn't just come from anxiety. And I feel sometimes this is quite a common misperception, because, pathological demand avoidance isn't logical in the way that it operates. If it was logical, we wouldn't be calling it pathological demand avoidance. And again, that term itself can be quite problematic, because PDA isn't just demand avoidance. It's not just, resistance to demands. It's not just that. It encompasses so much more than just demand avoidance. which is why you'll often see me and other PDA folks talk about, autonomy and how important autonomy is to us, because it's that choice and it's that respect of the inner self, of knowing that, yes, respect our autonomy, even if we want to do something, but understand that sometimes things just cannot be done, and there is no shame in it. There is no, problem with it. And by having that compassion and understanding of accepting that just sometimes things cannot be done, that generates an atmosphere of trust, because by accepting us at our worst per se, it encourages us to be more genuine. When we can be more genuine in our actions and in our interactions, you get that sense of trust. And when that trust grows, and when you have that faith in someone, that they accept you for the person that you are, that they understand that things can't be done, sometimes things can be done, sometimes we have to change things, what we can do one day may not be what we can do the next day. Just because one good experience has happened doesn't mean that even if you recreate the exact conditions of that experience that was successful, it will be successful again. Just that understanding and that compassion fosters us to have genuine interactions. And when we have genuine interactions, that's when life becomes better for us, because by having those genuine interactions, by having that acceptance of ourselves, things become easier. We are able to talk to people more. We are able to offload some of the great anxiety and the fears and the worries that we carry within us, and it can just make situations and relationships far more easier. I've deviated a bit from Christmas, but I wanted to try and explain some of the mentality behind what we struggle with. And so, sort of relating that back to Christmas now, that can be things, like the giving of presents, the receiving of presents. We may find it impossible to say thank you for a gift. We may be, it may be the perfect gift, and we are so overwhelmed with how wonderful this gift is that we may seem very unbothered by it. But it's not. We are just so overcome with, oh my God, this is what I always wanted. It's fantastic. But the expectation is there that, we thank this person for their thoughtfulness. But what I always say is, try to see or try to hear what is unspoken. I'm very much one for, there is a lot of subtlety with communication, particularly with PDA folks. The spoken word isn't necessarily the most important. Just our general being and how we are. Many people who come to my page, who I talk to in groups and things, I will almost always come out with behaviour is communication. And it very much is, because we often frame that around, distress behaviours. But behaviour being communication can also be, signs of pleasure and joy. Something, a few years ago, my husband gave me a Spyro phone holder, Spyro the Dragon, the game. And I love Spyro, always have. And I genuinely flapped. And I'm one of those autistic people who I don't flap very often. I talk with my hands a lot. I'm almost always moving. But flapping, which is considered a very autistic behaviour, is not something I do very often. But it comes out most in sort of the times of either severe distress, where I'll be literally like this because I can't control my flap. But it also comes out when I'm really, really happy. So if I'm sort of like, oh my God, that's amazing. Or even if I'm not saying it's amazing and I'm just doing this is me getting super excited. Oh, I have a visitor. So I'm going to cut this short now. But I hope this does help some people in understanding how we can struggle with the expectations of Christmas, and how it can be really difficult for us to overcome some of the things, even if, it's an enjoyable thing, even if it's going to be a fun thing. We have to listen to our internal systems, and people who can understand and respect and work with us while we deal with those internal systems and how we feel inside. It really does help, especially around the Christmas season. So I'm going to bid you all farewell now. I hope you found some of what I have said helpful. If not, sorry. But yeah, good luck this Christmas season. I'll be about on my page, for bits and pieces. I'm not great at responding to messages because things are quite busy at the moment. But if you do message me, I will attempt to get back to you. But by all means, if you have questions that I can possibly help to answer, I'm not a professional. I'm not God. All I am is a me with my experience. So if I can try and help you in any ways, pop your questions below and I'll see what I can do. Take care, folks. Bye.